Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
He needs care and treatment.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trustee Properties on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Is this a great country or what?
Locking down the middle of the day, live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. It means we're brought to you by Daryl May of Trustee Properties. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, fired up here with us for the next couple of hours. We are loaded over the course of those 2 hours. Got Glen West coming up over the next in 30 minutes. Got your refi check at the bottom of hour number 2. It has been a wild day down at the Saints facilities, cuts, trades, lots of things going on down there in Metairie. So we'll talk Sharif about it at the bottom of the hour. I've got some thoughts in 15 minutes as well. I want to talk about Cade Klubnik. We'll do that at 2 o'clock, kind of get a feel for the Clemson starting quarterback that LSU will face coming up on Saturday night in Clemson. So lots and lots to do. So let's start things the way we do every single day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
So I went on a mission starting back on Saturday morning into Sunday evening, and then again last night, and continued this morning where I wrote the story for LouisianaSports.net, digging into the last 2 season opening losses. I realized that LSU has lost 5 straight openers. I don't know that there's a lot I'm going to take from KJ Costello setting a Mississippi State and SEC passing record in front of literal stick figures in a COVID end zone with Ed Ogeron as the head coach back 5 years ago. I don't think that applies much to what we're going to see on Saturday. I don't know that the UCLA game carries a lot of weight either. And honestly, I kind of eliminate the first Florida State game in New Orleans because that was a completely new football program that LSU was debuting with all new coaches and tons of new players and a new quarterback. And, they played valiantly and they fought back and they should have tied the game. And, yeah, it's not great to have 2 kicks blocked, a field goal and an extra point, and not get into overtime, and they lose the game. But I don't know that there are a lot of strong comparisons you can take between that game and this one. But LSU should have been prepared to go to Orlando to play Florida State. They should have been prepared to go to Las Vegas and play USC, and you lost both of those games. So I feel like I was going to go, okay, well, what's similar? Clearly, the team 2 years ago had Jaden Daniels and had Malik Neighbors and had Brian Thomas, but had that awful defense. The team last year had a new quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier making his first regular season start, and you had a new defensive coordinator. But, you have the program in place for those 2 games, and you failed. Was there anything I could dive into and suggest, okay, that carries over? They've got to be better at this right out of the gate. And I came up with 3 things, and I put them up on the website. You can read a little bit more in depth at LouisianaSports.net, but I'll get into them. The first thing is passing defense. Jordan Travis and Miller Moss annihilated LSU in both of those games. Those 2 combined to complete 50 of 67 passes. That is 75% completion for 720 yards and 5 touchdowns against 1 interception. Deuce Chestnut had a pick at the line of scrimmage against Jordan Travis, and that's the only pick, really the only play that LSU's made on the ball. 75% completion for those 2 guys for 720 yards. That's 360 a pop for those 2 guys. That's just not even putting up a fight. And we know that 2 years ago, LSU's defense was atrocious. LSU finished 118th out of 133 FBS teams in passing defense. They were terrible. They were terrible that night in Orlando. They were terrible all year. Last year, USC was a quality passing offense. They were 10th in the country in passing offense. Moss missed some time due to injury, but that was his season high against LSU in passing yards. Season high. LSU finished 10th in the SEC in passing defense, 12th in the SEC in completion percentage allowed. So that was a huge, huge problem. in those two games. And it's not like you're getting a huge reprieve on Saturday. You got Cade Klubnik, who's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I'll do a whole breakdown on him at the top of the next hour, but you understand that you've got three great wide receivers in Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco Jr., and TJ Moore, who had great years last year, and a really good quarterback on their home field. Like, you've got to cover. And the good news that I can give you, the LSU fan, is I've been out to practice. 2 years ago, they didn't cover a soul in fall camp. Nobody. Not surprising. 2 first-round wide receivers, a Heisman Trophy quarterback, and a bad defense. That's going to be a one-sided camp. Last year, they didn't really cover anybody last year either. I came on here, said as much. Said, I'm concerned. I don't think they can cover. I watched fall camp this year. They covered a little bit. Ashton Stamps, a little stickier. P.J. Woodland made some plays on the ball. Mansour Delane had some interceptions to his name in camp. And the safety play is way better. So, yeah, it's a big challenge. But they should be better this time around than they have been the last 2 years, where they have put up no resistance through the air. So that's one thing. This stat jarred me a little bit. I didn't recall it this bad, but it is. Do you realize that LSU against Florida State in Orlando and against USC in Vegas has been outscored in the second half 52-13? 52-13 after halftime. Florida State went on a 31-0 run, and USC won the second half 21-6. I mean, that's just getting your butt kicked every which way. That's not just on the defense. That's not just on the offense. That's not just on special teams. That is a complete failure across the board by everyone. To get completely outclassed 52-13 with the Heisman Trophy winner and 2 first-round receivers on one side of the ball 2 years ago, and then last year with a quality team that LSU had. I want a great team. It was a quality team. USC wasn't that good last year. It was a fine team. They were fine. They were a middle-of-the-road Big Ten team. And they crushed you in the second half. Jordan Travis threw 1 incompletion in the second half. He threw 2 touchdowns, 1 incompletion. Miller Moss threw for 202 yards in the second half last year. So what happened? Like, how did you get annihilated 52-13 over the course of 4 quarters? Well, I went back and looked at it, and I remember this. Against Florida State, LSU couldn't stop Florida State. That was one thing. So the defense failed. Offensively, you had a crucial drop by Kyron Lacey on a 3rd down that stalled a drive. He was beyond the sticks, easy first down. He dropped it. And then you had Malik Neighbors fall down on a pass that Jaden Daniels then threw, and it was picked off. And because you had those 2 possessions stall quickly, Florida State won the time of possession in the second half, 19.5 minutes to 10.5 minutes. It was 2-1. With that defense on the field, you were never going to be able to do anything. Against USC, LSU's offense just couldn't sustain anything. They had 1 really good drive. They went 78 yards for a touchdown. But the other drives in the second half, 3 and out, a 3 and out, a 5-play punt, and then a 9-play drive that you stalled in the red zone for a field goal. The 5th possession there was the last of the game. You had like 8 seconds, and you threw an interception that was desperation anyway. But your offense just kind of sputtered. And because you weren't getting stops specifically through the air with your pass defense, you got nothing out of it. LSU, outside of that great 1 touchdown drive against USC in the second half, ran 21 plays for 25 yards. So what I'm writing in this LouisianaSports.net thing, and what I'm telling you here, is it wasn't as if LSU was not in any way prepared to play or ready to play in the opener. You're talking about a situation where you were leading 14-7 with just over a minute to play before halftime against Florida State. Like, you had a 7-point lead with a minute and 5 seconds to go in the half. Like, you showed up, and then they crushed you in the second half. You were tied with USC after the end of the first quarter. You were tied with USC at halftime. You were leading USC at the end of the third quarter, and then crushed. So I don't know if it's lack of adjustments. I don't know if it's the other team figuring out what you're doing. I don't know if it's lack of late game execution. I don't know. I'm not in the huddle. I don't know what the play calls are. I can't dive any deeper than that. But I can tell you that after halftime, you're getting crushed. And that's uncomfortable. So that's two things. Your pass defense has been terrible, and your second halves have been abysmal. What's the third thing? Well, this one you know. If you've paid any attention, you realize what has happened to LSU on their first drive of the last two seasons. And this is a parallel. They have gone on long drives against Florida State and Orlando and against USC and Vegas, and then gotten inside the 5-yard line and had 4th and goal and gotten turned away. They're not taking points. In Orlando, the first play of the year for LSU offensively, dump off to Trey Bradford. He books it down the left sideline. You're in business. You're in the red zone. They drive it down inside the 5, down to the 3-yard line, 4th and goal, can't get it. Nothing. You get no points. Fast forward a year, 74-yard drive. They're hitting Lacey on the sideline. Nussmeier looks good, running the ball a little bit. Boom, you get down inside the 5-yard line, go for a 4th and goal, come away with nothing. LSU has had 3 red zone possessions in these 2 games that have resulted in 0 total points. For reference on that, last season, Vanderbilt had 3. In the year, Vanderbilt had 3. Missouri had 5. Red zone possessions where you get no points are killers. And here's why they're not getting points when they get down there. It is because that offensive line for 2 years was terrible in short yardage. They were terrible in short. They did not run the ball when teams knew LSU was going to run it. And when you got down there into tight quarters and they could bring all 11 guys down in there into the box, you couldn't get a push. Now, those guys are gone. You don't have those guys. But I would suggest it's a reasonable expectation. When we've broken down this game, I've done 3 different Clemson radio hits, and I'm listening to Locked On Clemson and listening to national talking heads talk about the game. I mean, I'm into this game now. Like I've heard a lot of people break it down. And a consensus, whether it's right or wrong, a consensus, which is everyone's belief, is that Clemson has an advantage with their defensive line, with Woods and Parker and those guys against LSU's revamped offensive line. That is the perception. And I think it's a realistic perception. Could LSU come out and knock them in the mouth? Sure, they could. We'll see. But the perception is that LSU's weaker at the offensive line than Clemson is defensive line. And understanding that is a very real potential. Don't play into it. Don't get down there inside the 5-yard line. Don't get to the 4th and goal from the 4 and decide, hey, we're going to knock somebody out of the way. No. Don't play into their hands. Take some points. Take some points early in the game, especially on the road. If you've got one of the best offensive lines in college football and a Heisman Trophy running back, yeah, get behind him and knock somebody out of the way and go score. That's not something LSU can bank on, in my estimation, right now. Maybe you will run the ball, but I'm not uber confident that you're just going to be able to flex your muscles on Clemson's defensive line. So don't play directly into that in crucial spots in the game. You don't get in on 3rd down, take some points. Points are good. And LSU has, in back-to-back openers, crushed its momentum by getting down there and failing to get any points at all. So these are the 3 things that stand out most to me. You've got to cover better. I think LSU will cover much better this year. It's a big challenge, but I think they'll cover better this year. You've got to play better in the second half. I don't have a solution for that, but figure something out. And then don't be hard-headed. Don't force the issue. Take some points when they're there. Ease into the game. Those are 3 things that I'm looking at that are very much parallels in the last 2 opening losses. Now you go on the road, try to take care of this. It's your only shot. That's our opening drive. Presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge. Big day down there in Metairie. Saints making a trade with the Dallas Cowboys. They've also made a couple of high-profile cuts. We'll talk about all that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Our Tuesday show is brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. He's a licensed realtor in Louisiana or Mississippi. If you're here in the hustle and bustle in the city and you're looking to maybe find some land outside of the rat race, Maybe it's in St. Francisville, maybe up there in Point Capee, maybe it's in the Felicianas, maybe up in Woodville, Mississippi, up to Natchez. If you're looking for a hunting property, an agriculture property, or just a second home or a primary residence out of the city, Daryl May can help you out with that. He's got access to the most premier listings in Louisiana and Mississippi, and he can help you out in getting that land you've always dreamed about. Call Daryl. Got his cell phone right here. It's 225. He's Baton Rouge born and raised, who's now made his home in St. Francisville. He knows what you're looking for. 225-268-6915 is the number. Again, that's 225-268-6915. If you're looking for land, whether it's hunting, which hunting season's coming up, agriculture, that second home, Daryl May Trusty Properties is a name you can trust.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
We'll chat with Glen West, Go 24/7, coming up in 10 minutes. We'll talk some Tigers with Glen as they get ready for Clemson. I got to talk about Cade Klubnik a little bit later as well as LSU gets prepared for him. But busy time right now in all the operations buildings for the NFL. Cut days the last couple of days, some trades going through, teams trying to set their first roster. As we know, it's ever evolving in the National Football League. So to try to take all of the Saints news today and jam it into 15 minutes right here would be very difficult. I'm going to hit some high points. Let's start with a couple of guys who are on the way out. We'll get to one that's on the way in, one that I think is on the way back, but we'll start with the couple that are on the way out. Isaiah Foskey was cut by the Saints today. That's a second-round draft choice, all-time leader in sacks in Notre Dame history, who you brought in, and it was very evident to everyone who was watching practice that he was a long way away from helping the New Orleans Saints, and he never really got any closer. The Saints have had Cam Jordan at one end. He's been a model of durability. Carl Granderson has emerged, but they've had some significant misses with Peyton Turner and Marcus Davenport, and then, of course, now Isaiah Foskey, where they've tried to address this all-important position of edge rusher and defensive end, and they've had just some absolute whiffs at the top of the draft. And Isaiah Foskey goes right there with all of them. This is not, some sort of crippling blow to the Saints to give up on Foskey today. Everyone has known what Foskey's situation was really for well over a year. What can't happen in the future is that guy being drafted again. You've got to hit on these early round draft choices, and Foskey is just a whiff. So no sense in spending a lot of time on it. Saints have got some guys on the edge that have some potential and some skins on the wall, and they'll be okay there. But Foskey, they gave him every opportunity. He played a ton of preseason snaps and just never showed up doing anything. So Isaiah Foskey moves on. He will no longer be with the New Orleans Saints. And same goes for Jake Haener. This was a bit of a surprise. The Saints did not, in the offseason, go out and address with a veteran quarterback. They had Jake Haener on the roster. Spencer Rattler returned. And then you draft Tyler Shuck. And the thought was, okay, do they go get Teddy Bridgewater? Is Joe Flacco available? Do they go find someone like that, Carson Wentz, who can be a veteran in the room that may not be a starter, but can, if you need him to, and can teach the quarterbacks how to go about their business? And they didn't do that. So now you look up, and there are two quarterbacks left. You've got Shuck. You've got Rattler. Haener is being cut. He'll try to find employment somewhere else. Now they've got to go get a quarterback. Ben DiNucci is available. That's a guy they've looked at in the past. They've got to find somebody because you clearly can't go forward without other bodies at the quarterback position that are capable. And so Haener, to me, this is one of those deals. Y'all have heard me the last 2 weeks say I don't need Haener to get any reps. I've seen enough of Jake Haener. He's a backup at best in the NFL. He's a camp arm at worst. He's been there for camp as a camp arm. Now he's moving on. But they need the other two guys to develop. And to this point, they've given those guys the lion's share of the reps. Every rep I thought Haener got was just one that Shuck and Rattler couldn't get. and I would have given him very little over the course of camp. Sounds unfair. It sounds harsh. This is the NFL. Get over it. So I have no ill will at all towards Jake Haener. I just know he's not the Saints quarterback of the future. That's even more apparent today as they let him go. So we'll see where he lands. But the Saints have got to go out now and address the quarterback position for sure. We'll see what they do over the course of the next week. Now, they did make a trade, and this is one that was essentially out of necessity. The Saints have made a trade with the Dallas Cowboys to acquire Asim Richards. Richards has spent 2 years with the Cowboys. He's an offensive tackle who's played offensive guard as well. He was a 3-year starter at North Carolina as the left tackle. In 2020, he was a sophomore named the full-time left tackle, part of an offensive line that had that did not come out. Josiah Ezadu and Marcus McKeithen. He blocked for Sam Howell, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter. And he played at left tackle for 3 seasons, ended up blocking for Drake May his last year in 2022. So you're talking about a guy who started a total of 11, 24, 38 games at left tackle for North Carolina. And then he went to the Senior Bowl and became a 5th-round draft choice of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Saints did give up a draft pick, a 6th-rounder in 2028, so way down the line. And I'm okay with it. I don't love it, but what are you going to do? You're looking up right now. Trevor Penning has missed much of camp. Will Clapp is done for the year. Landon Young is probably going to have to go on IR. He was carted off. Taliese Fuaga is dealing with a knee injury. That's 4 guys, not like 4 guys on the whole roster. 4 guys you were counting on to help you on the offensive line. And Penning is banged up. Clapp's done. Young was on the cart the last time I saw him, and Fuaga has got knees that are bothering him. So, you need offensive linemen. And it's very difficult to go find offensive linemen off the street. You can find a running back. You can find a corner. You can find a wideout. 6'1" guys who can run are a dime a dozen. 330-pound guys that can move and know what they're doing are not a dime a dozen. They're hard to find. So if you have to have one. You don't have enough bodies out there. You had 2 tackles healthy as of 2 days ago. So they've got to make a move. You've got to give up an asset to get an asset. I'm not suggesting that they found the answer to their offensive line problems in Asim Richards. What I am suggesting is you can't just stand pat with no offensive line depth. So you worry about your 2028 draft choice that you don't have anymore when you get to 2028, right? If you're the Cowboys, you figure Richards is a depth piece at best. Okay, I'll go ahead and take my draft pick for him. I'm okay at offensive line. The Saints still probably have to do some window shopping here with the players that are becoming available today. Get your scouts deep into those notes and find somebody else to bring in that's been let go from another organization, because you just have to have offensive line depth. Newsflash: it's August 26th. Saints offensive linemen are not done getting hurt between now and Christmas. Somebody else is going to get banged up. So you need depth. And you got to give up an asset to get him. And if you're going to give up an asset, a 6th-round pick, 3 years from now, I'll live. Richards has split his time in the NFL between pass blocking and run blocking to this point. I mean, obviously. Between tackle and guard at this point. Had my brain already going forward towards pass blocking and run blocking. He's 24 years old. He's 6'4", 307. He's a depth piece. I don't think he's a starter, but if you need somebody to check in, he can definitely do that. So that's a move the Saints have made to this point. I'm good with it. Last thing I want to talk about here in the Saints segment, player on his way out that could be back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was waived today, but he does not have to clear waivers because he's a vested NFL veteran. So you're talking about a guy who the Saints could have a handshake agreement. Hey, we're going to cut you right now, but stay right here because we're going to make these moves and then we'll bring you back either practice squad or to the active roster because we're doing this and this. There is a game to this that is beyond the depth at which I understand fully, and certainly not going to go into live on the radio. But I do understand that you make some moves here and there based on the options that players have. You understand what moves are coming in the next 24, 48 hours, and you have relationships with players and you shoot them straight, and sometimes they are welcome back, sometimes they're not. They may have told Clyde, hey, man, great job in camp. You did a good job. We appreciate you helping us out. But these are the guys we're going to go with. If you want to look elsewhere, please do. They may have said, hey, we're going to let you go today. Stay right here. We're going to bring you back onto the practice squad, and we have plans to use you as this and this happens. I don't know what the plan is for Clyde. I thought he had a pretty good camp. The reports from practices were good. I thought he showed some things in the game, especially from a pass protection perspective, that he's certainly capable. I never thought Akers was going to make the team, and you knew that Kendre Miller had kind of surged to that top spot. But I felt like Clyde had a pretty good chance to make the team. We'll see what that chance is now that they put him on waivers. I mean, not waivers. They've cut him. But I think there's a chance that Clyde could come back, and Ross has thought that as well. If you're looking for the Saints news of the day, looking to try to stay up on the cuts and the acquisitions and the trades and everything that's going on, Ross Jackson, LouisianaSports.net has got you covered. He's at the Saints facility, been there for the early afternoon, was writing all morning. So everything that you're looking for is on a roster cuts tracker, and then on the updates on the news feed as things happen. So go check that out for free at LouisianaSports.net. All right, let's step aside. When we come back, Glen West, Go 24/7. We'll talk Tigers and Tigers next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. You know, one of the cool things about buying a new vehicle is you get to see all the features, get to test everything out, get the explanation of how everything works in your new rig. Well, a lot of times in South Louisiana, especially this time of year, you're doing that in the parking lot where it's 9,000 degrees. Not very comfortable. That's not the case at Genesis because they think about details. They think about customer experience all the time. So as part of their new dealership, they've got a climate-controlled area that they bring the car into. It's right there off the showroom. And you deal with all of the bells and whistles of your brand new Genesis in a comfortable, air-conditioned environment. It's just one of the perks. If they service your vehicle, they've got an amazing place to sit right there that's got you taken care of in terms of snacks. They're all out there for free. An amazing coffee maker there. The ambiance is great. If you'd like to get some work done while your service is being done, they've got secluded little areas that are sectioned off that you can have some privacy and get some work done. They think about everything at Genesis. They've got an amazing line of vehicles. Their staff is wonderful. But it's also everything that goes around that, from the complimentary valet maintenance to the ambiance in the showroom. It's all fantastic. Go by and see them. Airline at Piku. You can see the entire inventory at GenesisOfBatonRouge.com. It's GenesisOfBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Looking for land to hunt or build? Call Daryl May at Trusty Properties.
On this Tuesday, hope your work week's off to a good start. We'll talk a little Cade Klubnik coming up in 25 minutes. LSU and Clemson, 6:30 Central from, I always want to say Death Valley, and then I realized that if I say that
Memorial Stadium, right? Memorial Stadium.
I got asked on Clemson, it was Greenville radio yesterday, if this was the battle for Death Valley, and I was like, I just don't care.
Sure it is.
I just don't care. I don't think the loser of the game will rename their stadium.
No, they have to. Yeah, they have to change the name.
Feels like it's unlikely.
I don't think Death Valley is an official name for either of the stadiums.
It is not. It is not. So I just feel like probably a bit of a manufactured line.
Yes.
And quite frankly, they played a more important game 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So is what it is. Glen West will be there. Senior writer over at Go 24/7 joins us on Tuesdays. Glen, how we doing?
Doing great, Hunt. Thanks for having me on. Excited about game week.
Yeah, it is. I was figuring out kind of where I wanted to go with you here, and I want to talk about the offense first. If I just tossed you an open-ended question and said, what do you think the identity of this offense is going to be? What would you say?
I would probably lean towards it being a more of a pass-heavy offense again this year. I mean, I do think that they are working to try to run the ball a little bit more efficiently and be a little bit better in that department, but the amount of weapons that they have in the passing game is crazy. I mean, I was doing our deep kind of breakdown of LSU Clemson this morning, and it's just like there's like 6 or 7 guys that you can go to before you even kind of say, well, maybe this guy won't be as involved in the passing game. Like there's legitimately 6 or 7 players that I think could contribute for LSU as early as week 1. And I just think that's a very unique position to be in as an offense. And the big question, though, is just, can Nussmeier have enough time to get the ball to those playmakers? I think a big part of this game plan this week is going to be about getting the ball out quickly to those guys and letting them go make some plays, because I do think that LSU's receivers probably have a little bit of an advantage just looking at kind of the who they're going to be matched up against in the Clemson secondary. So I think this identity of this offense is going to come back to the passing game and Garrett Nussmeier's arm at the end of the day. But you hope that they can complement it a little bit more with some consistency in the run game as well.
They were incredibly efficient. They led the conference in completions last year. They were great on third down, but a lot of it was short and intermediate. Do you think it looks like that again this year? Do you think it looks a little bit different this time around?
No, I think maybe early on it could look similar, just because I do think it's going to take a little bit of time for this offensive line to gel and to really kind of figure out what they have up front. But I think long term, like Chris Hilton, Barryon Brown, Xavier Thomas, like they have some really elite deep threats, I think, this year that maybe they didn't have it last year. And you saw a little bit of that, right, when Chris Hilton came back and was able to contribute the way that he did in the Oklahoma game and in the Baylor game. And so I do think there's going to be more opportunities to go downfield and get vertical with this offense. But I don't know that it happens week 1 against Clemson. Like I think that they have to be really, really careful with how they approach this first game because of how highly touted that defensive line for Clemson is coming into this thing.
Who do you think the starting offensive line is going to be?
I think Tyree Adams at left tackle, Paul Mubanga at left guard, Braylon Moore at center, Josh Thompson at right guard, and Weston Davis at right tackle is kind of what I've settled on here. I think DJ Chester's a guy that's going to swing, between left guard and maybe play a little bit of, center or right guard. But it sounds like they're going to have a little bit of a rotation on the offensive line. I don't know if that'll be a series by series thing, a quarter by quarter thing. It certainly doesn't seem great if you're doing it play by play, but I do think that Cohen Eccles is going to play a little bit and Karius Kern's going to play a little bit. So I'm excited. Like I think there's, the offensive line has not been the strength of this team so far, but I think that they have a chance to really go out there and show, the country that maybe they're a little bit underrated or undervalued here going into the season.
What would you say to someone who says, hey, they're rotating offensive linemen because they don't have 5 guys they trust and they're trying to find it, as opposed to saying, oh, we're trying to keep guys fresh? Like, what do you read into the offensive line rotation?
I think it's definitely more of the former. Like, I think they're still trying to figure out what the best 5 is going to be for them long term. And carrying that into the season, I think in most years is not a problem. But I just think given the opponent here that they're playing on Saturday, and like I said, how highly touted that group is for Clemson coming in, it's not ideal to be in that situation, but it's just the hand that LSU's been dealt here. And, I would much rather rotate guys in than just stick to a 5 that you don't really have, full confidence in. Like, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they rotate those guys in and out, but maybe it works. Maybe it's, something that, they feel like is going to give them the best chance to win the game. And that's certainly what, Brian Kelly seemed to hint at yesterday.
What do you feel like Clemson does well that could give the LSU defense problems?
They just have some really good edge rushers. I mean, I think Parker and Helt on the edge are going to be really, stout for them. And look, I think the pressure that we've seen in fall camp from LSU has started inside out, right? I mean, that's the thing that Brian Kelly talked about several weeks ago. That was most impressive to him about the defensive line and the pressure that they were getting, is that a lot of it's come on the interior. And so, Peter Woods is a guy that I think, fans are going to have to become very familiar with over the next couple of days. But I think just those 3, the combination of those 3, they have size, they have athleticism, they have talent, and they brought in a new defensive coordinator that I think has really stressed the run game for most of this offseason, just on what I've researched and just what I've read. But I think that trio in particular is going to be something that's could potentially give LSU some trouble here if they aren't on their P's and Q's and aren't playing at their ultimate best for week 1 standards on that offensive line.
Flip sides of the ball, what does Clemson offensively do that could give LSU's defense some trouble?
I think probably that the passing game is going to be what LSU maybe wants to steer them towards. Like I think that Clemson's run game. I mean, I believe Adam Randall is going to be their starting running back. It sounds like that's been the transition they've been working towards all offseason, but he hasn't really been a running back at all in his career. He's just somebody that, just listening to Dabo Swinney talk, just is really good with the ball in his hands. And so they've really transitioned him into a running back after being a receiver for a couple of years. And so Klubnik obviously has some running ability. That was something that Brian Kelly talked about on Monday with reporters, and that's something that they're going to have to run fit. But I have a lot of confidence in this front seven, honestly, going into this thing, that they're going to be able to hold the run game. It's just going to be about, can everybody all 11 be working together, and that's in the passing game, and the pressure that they could create up front. Can those cornerbacks and safeties that we've been seeing, I think, stick with LSU's receivers when they're getting the ball out quickly? I think that's been a common theme, is that they have been able to at least be around the ball and be, kind of in the play and have opportunities to make plays. Like, I think that's the best way for LSU to have success in this thing, and is to shut down the run early, not let them get going on the ground, and allowing those playmakers in the back half of your secondary to go out there and try to get them off the field.
You think LSU would rather play a 20-17 game or a 38-35 game?
I think 20-17. I mean, that's kind of my prediction. That was my game prediction on the mark going into this thing, was 2017, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game, to be quite honest with you. I think both of these defenses are going to be much improved, and could potentially give the offense some trouble here. I think that for LSU's perspective, the one thing that I think you have to be able to do on Saturday is establish some kind of run game. Like, that's been, I think, kind of a common theme here over their previous three openers, is that the running backs have not really been able to get going. I mean, you had the one long John Emery 61-yard run against USC last year, but outside of that, they've been averaging around 2 or 3 yards a carry with their running backs in these openers. So if they're able to spring Caden Durham loose, I think that just sets up everything for this offense to be at its best, and it will give them the best opportunity to go, get a big win on the road.
This is a big question here, but I'm trying to get out in front of Sunday. Is there a chance that you're going to feel differently about the program on Sunday than you do today, based on 4 quarters of football?
Do you mean like just win or lose? Like, just whatever the result is? Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know that a loss will necessarily change things yet for me, just because I do think that long-term this team is still going to be very good, and that just, you're going on the road to a top 5 team where you're not going to be favored. It's tough to win those games. And I think if LSU wins that game, they prove to me that they are not only a playoff contender, but they're a championship contender. And so I think from that perspective, yes, it will change my thoughts on the program and where this thing's going. But a loss, I would probably hold judgment or hold reserves until we got to see them, 5, 6, 7 weeks into this thing, and then we might have a little bit of a cleaner picture. But there's no doubt this is a huge moment in Brian Kelly's tenure here, and just this whole era of LSU football. This is going to be one of those games that I think we look back on in 5-10 years. How did Brian Kelly's tenure go at LSU? I think most people are going to mention the Clemson game as one of their first go-to games.
That's a lot. That's a lot to deal with.
I know. I'm curious. Do you feel the same way? Do you not feel the same way? Like, are you kind of in that same boat?
It's not how I'm wired. It's why I like baseball more, because you just come back and you play the next day. I'm not good at the entire fan base melting down or anointing everything. I just kind of like to stay a little bit even keel, and it's probably not the best thing for listenership on a talk radio show, because people want to hear you freak out or go nuts or whatever. I'm just not wired like that. So it's just hard for me to sit here and go, well, they can't beat Clemson on Saturday. They spent $18 million on this team. Burn it down. Fire everybody. What's the buyout? Who's the new coach? Like, that drives me nuts. But I don't think you're wrong. I mean, it's important.
Yeah.
All right. Well, safe travels up there. We'll talk about it next week.
All right. Thanks, Hunt. Appreciate it.
He's Glen West, Go 24/7 team coverage, recruiting coverage. You can find it over there at Go 24/7. He's with us on Tuesdays. Let me dive deeper into that to close out the hour. We'll talk about it when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club right here in Baton Rouge. Golf club? What are you talking? Well, it is. It's a club. There are membership options available for you if you'd like to become a member of Swing Easy Golf Club and have access to their golf simulators. You can book up 7 hours a week included in your membership. If you're not a member, you can still swing by and work on your game or just enjoy some fun on the golf simulator out of the elements of South Louisiana. Right now, it's 900 degrees. In December, it gets dark at 4:45. It rains every afternoon right now as well. If you want to protect yourself from the elements, still want to play some golf, Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge. They're on Segan, right there by Perkins. You walk in, 3 amazing bays, comfortable seating, food. I mean, you got their drinks right there, your beer, your wine right there. You can work on your game on the driving range setting. I found that really helpful when I was in there last week, seeing where my club was impacting the ball, looking at your launch angle, looking at your carry distances. And you can also just have some fun. They've got dozens of famous golf courses from around the world plugged in that you can play on the simulator. Bring your friends, hang out, watch a game, or work on your game. It's Swing Easy Golf Club right there on Segan near Perkins. Get on by and see them. It's brand new here in Baton Rouge. You're going to want to check this place out. I'll be there a lot, I can promise you. So go by and see them. It's Swing Easy Golf Club right here in Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Looking for land to hunt or build? Call Daryl May at Trusty Properties.
Tuesday show is brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Looking for that land, whether it's 30 acres, 300 acres. In Louisiana, in Mississippi, Daryl May can help you out with that. A lot of folks, that's their dream, to own a lot of land, to live out on it, to hunt it, to grow agriculture on it. If that's the case, and you're not really sure where to start, Daryl May and Trusty Properties can help you out with that. Give Daryl a call. His cell's 225-268-6915. That's 225-268-6915. Daryl May and Trusty Properties. That is a name you can trust. The Saints have a starting quarterback for week 1. It will be Spencer Rattler. I'm not going to shoehorn that segment into 4 minutes here because we don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to talk about Spencer Rattler coming up in 10 minutes at the top of the hour. We'll talk about Cade Klubnik in the second segment of the hour, and then we'll go to Sharif Ishak for more reaction on it at the bottom of hour number 2. But Spencer Rattler will be the starter for the Saints. If you were listening in the last segment, I was talking to Glen West. It's just about the circumstances and the weight of this game on Saturday for LSU. And it is my nature not to overreact. It is my nature to say, look, even if they lose, like, it's just one game. You're in a 12-team playoff right now. You've even got one more to play with down the stretch. Now, it's a hard plank to walk, hard tightrope to walk, but it's still doable. But I understand that if LSU loses on Saturday, that I'm going to get a lot of text messages. There will be a lot of folks on Twitter. Tiger droppings will have to shut down because everyone will want to fire everyone on the staff. That's just the way this thing is wired for this sport in this time of year. Baseball, I think everyone's kind of understands you have some bad weekends here or there. Just happens to the best teams LSU's ever had. And we've seen enough LSU teams respond to crappy weekends in baseball, crappy months in baseball, and turn it around that very few people just completely panic. Football's not like that. You got 12 games. Every time you lose one, it's just doomsday. And I'm not wired for that. And I've already had to prepare myself for that possibility on Sunday. Now, look, if they win the game on Sunday, you'll come back as the number 2 or 3 team in the country. You'll have Louisiana Tech coming in for a coronation of this team and a feeling like you've got something special. And I don't have to mentally prepare for that. That's easy. I can run that gamut all day long. That's going to be great. But you got to prepare for the other side in this line of work and understand what we're going to do. And I understand that if I come out here and write a column for LouisianaSports.net on Sunday, Saturday night, and then I come out here on Monday and say, look, everybody just calm down, people are going to go, you're an idiot. That's what's coming. And it's just, I just can't remember a lot of games that felt like this right out of the chute. So it's a big, big deal. And I have to I have to realize in that big deal that, like, they've sunk $18 million into this roster. You're going to lose upwards of 16, 17 starters off this team entering next year. Your quarterback will be gone, and I don't think you have the next one on the roster. Plus, your schedule next year might include Texas, might include Alabama, might include Georgia, Clemson. Like, it's a nightmare to look at the schedule for next year, potentially. So, like, you might have 2 years worth of hope wrapped up into 4 hours on the road against maybe the most talented team in the country. Like, that is some heavy stuff we're talking about here. And there's a part of everybody that goes, man, how exciting is this? I cannot wait to watch this. And there's a part that goes, this goes wrong, man. We got some problems. And that's just a lot. It's a lot. And it's my job to compartmentalize it, but also not to undersell it, right? You don't want to downplay this thing completely and suggest it's not a big deal. It's a big freaking deal. There's a lot that's been pushed to the front for this team. Now, I don't want to try to put LSU and Ole Miss in the same bucket when it comes to competing for championships in college football, because one's a perennial power that has 3 national championships in the last 22 years and has played for another one and has gotten to Atlanta multiple times, and the other one has never been to Atlanta and has never won a national championship since the 50s. But you realize what they were doing last year, what they felt about themselves last year, and when that group leaves, what the expectation is this year. They're not supposed to be as good. Feels like you might have 2 years worth of hope tied up in this thing. So we'll see. It's a heavy question. I'm glad I asked Glenn that. I thought his answer was good. We'll see. We'll talk some LSU Clemson in the second hour, but after we pause for national headlines in Sports Center, let's talk about the Saints naming a starting quarterback. I'm sure you'll hear about that in Sports Center. We're back on the other side on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.